Good evening, everybody. We'll just give it a few minutes here to let everybody file into the webinar, and we'll get started right on time tonight. Just wait another couple minutes and let everybody file in, and then we'll get started. We'll just give it another minute here while letting everybody get in. Feel free to type any questions as we go, though, here in the chat box, and we will try to address them at the end of the webinar tonight. Just give everybody another minute or so here, and then we'll get started. All right, so we got 7 p.m. on my clock. I think we'll get this started. Everybody's got busy schedules, and we always appreciate taking the time out of those busy schedules to join us here and go through the Sire lineup for 2023. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brad Gilchrist with Semex Beef Program, and tonight we're delighted to have Dennis Serhienko, our Beef Sire Analyst and Internal Program Manager, help us go through and talk about the sires, what he thinks about them, potentially where some of them can be used, and how they best fit your markets. Historically, Semex has always really prided ourselves on trying to balance phenotype with data, and I think the lineup that we've got here this evening is going to outline that extremely well. Just a couple things I want to say thanks to our marketing team who put this together and organized it. Kayla Walker, Clarissa, and Holly McFarland as well. They do a lot of work for us behind the scenes and getting a lot of this marketing material ready for us to be able to use for programs like this. So hats off to them for doing a stand-up job, and thanks once again. Without too much more, I think we'll pass this off to Dennis, and we'll get through the bulls tonight. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box. And at the end of the evening, we will try to go through and answer some of those questions for you. And I think myself and Dennis are also very approachable. Feel free to reach out to us anytime throughout the year. We're happy to help you try to make some of your breeding decisions. So with that, Dennis, thanks, and take it away.
Thanks a bunch, Brad. And I think before we, just to touch on, one of the comments you just mentioned, I think that's really important for us from a Semex perspective. When you touched on the data perspective and the balanced breeding, as an industry, we've never moved faster in history from a genomic standpoint. We've been reaching new heights in data. But I think what's really important with that is we've got to keep the cow herd profitable. We've got to keep that mama cow working for us and not us working for her. And I think that's what ensures sustainability and longevity down the road. With that, there's terminal programs, there's maternal programs, and I think that's why we're going to go through a bunch of these bulls. There's some bulls that, they will move you in new territory from a terminal standpoint, whether it's carcass, feed efficiencies, traits like that. But I think we've also really got to pay attention to some sires that really do things, well from a maternal standpoint. So I think that's just, I think a lot of the reason that's great to see a lot of the background on these genetics that we have to offer. But I think as an industry, I think it's, the balanced breeding approach really is sustainable and long-term. So I think with that, let's just get right into the meat of the matter and the bulls. And I think what an absolute fitting way to start when we go through the sire lineup, but the Ellingson Profound bull. I think he's a bull that epitomizes balanced breeding. When we look from a dollar maternal standpoint, cow herd efficiency, You know, here's a bull that hits a top 20% yearling weight, big, powerful, robust body type of bull, exceptional footed bull. When we look at those foot score EPDs, claw and angle, and you know, it's a thing to have great numbers, but these cattle are really quality on the foot when you see them in person and visualize them. It's we're pretty excited to announce at the recent Ellingson sale. I don't think I've ever seen this anywhere in the world. 127 sons of Profound in the Ellingson sale averaged 14,283. I think that's you know, a world record on a sire group in one sale. I mean, it's really amazing, and I think that's a lot of the reason we can really see the demand for these maternal, stout, sound, high quality type genetics that'll keep you in the beef business for a long time. He's a high scrotal bull, high foot quality, big, robust, easy doing type of bull, and I think he can really set a program into a great foundation. Next sire we're going to touch base on is our Colossal sire. You know, he's a really interesting bull. When we first acquired him, we were looking for a Cavanese son of the Capitalist 316 that was doing such great things within the industry. When we went down to Musgraves and seen this bull at the sale, we went out and toured the cows and seen his mother and grandmother. It was absolutely incredible when you seen his young dam. Of course, she had him as a 2-year-old. She was back. She had one of the earliest calves as a 3-year-old. She had already been cycling again, you know, so I mean, we're talking a young productive cow that's raising raised a #1 indexing calf as a 2-year-old, bred right back, high quality grand dam. So we really projected this bull to be a female maker. He started off for us as a Cavanese bull with high phenotype, and he checked all those boxes. But the doability is absolutely amazing in this bull, and it's backed up by his numbers. You know, when we look at his Cavanese numbers, his low birth weight numbers, then we get into his dry matter intake, his DMI. He's a breed leader. When you get into there, he's a sire that hits the top 20% for cow herd maintenance. You know, those kind of numbers were backed up in what we're seeing in the progeny. So what's really exciting for us is once he checked all the boxes as a Cavanese, high phenotype type sire, his sons have been in real high demand all across North America and around the globe. And now we're starting to see where his daughters are producing the next generation of breed leaders. When you look at the Peak Dot program and the Musgrave program, you know, the leading bulls that are coming out of those programs are out of Colossal daughters. And I think for us, that's what's really impressive about this sire. He's had renewed interest because of those daughters. I think we had one question in the chat on the previous bull, Profound, if he'd work on heifers. I think in some instances he has. He's not an absolute bet the ranch heifer type bull, as we've got some other options for that. But I think in the right circumstances, he probably could be. We get into a new sire here, the next one we're talking about, and it's the Tanker bull. I mean, here's a growth sire, tremendous growth figures, and he backs it up with his own individual stats. I mean, we're talking almost a 1,600-pound yearling weight bull here, 850 weaning weight type bull. If you're looking for a little bit more frame, a little bit more length, Tanker really checks those boxes. A little bit of a different pedigree. When we go through the industry on him, out of a legend daughter, he's backed up by 2 generations of Pathfinder dams. So there's a lot of performance here, but it's also very productive. A big ribeye bull, great foot score EPDs, and a bull that'll just, you know, he'll give you that extra performance when you're looking for a extra performance edge, but not just in a taller, longer frame, but in a real big, wide-based, bold, robust type of frame with a little bit more scale to him. I think this is a pretty interesting sire, as we've seen over the last few generations where we've moderated things a touch. This bull will get you back on scale. Brutus is a second-year bull for us. You know, I think what really piqued our interest on this bull when we acquired him with the Peak Dot Ranch was when you can combine the 2 greatest cows in the Angus breed in North America, the Baldridge Isabel Y69 and Black Cap May 4136, that really got us looking at this sire. Then when we looked further, he just checked all the boxes. He's coming through as a moderate breed average Cavanese bull, but a real high growth sire as his first progeny date has come in. He's excelled on weaning weight. He's excelled on yearling weight, but in the right package. It's a good footed package. It's a stout, robust body type package, real structurally sound, good headed. And I think a bull that, as we see him get through his next consecutive calf crops after the first sons that'll be selling this spring, I think this is a bull that really needs to be on the radar moving forward. I think he just checks so many of the performance boxes, but with the cow families behind him and in the right type of package. So that brings us to the MOGUL bull, and this has been a really interesting bull. We acquired him out of the Pineview program. That's been a really solid program. When when you look across the Angus breed and you look at programs that are really combining breed leading data, but really focusing on fundamentals, the Pineview program's been really good for us. We've gotten a number of sires out of there, and MOGUL is one of the bulls that's really risen to the top. Again, when we look at from a cow family perspective, Baldridge Isabel Y69 comes up there as his grand dam. He's a bull that gives you a bit of a different pedigree with Spring Cove Reno, and he's just a check all the boxes type of bull. He's a true mid-frame bull. He's really sound. He's really deep-bodied, right kind of head. A bull that'll give you moderate, slightly above breed average cavities and low birth weight figures, but then come in with lots of growth. Great foot score on this bull, great heifer pregnancy. And when you look at him from a carcass perspective, he gives you over 1 on both marbling and ribeye. I think a bull that really epitomizes the balanced breeding. He'll give you lots of improvements as far as carcass traits and some of the terminal traits, but really put him in a real sensible type of package. When you look at him from a yearling height, moderation, he's just slightly above breed average. So I think he's a bull that'll give you growth and carcass traits in a little bit more of a maternal type package, which when you look at his $M at 1%, which entails, his high heifer pregnancy, strong milk in a moderate, sensible package, I think that's where you've got a bull that really checks a lot of boxes and backed up by a great cow family. Stock fund is a bull that comes through, and when we look through the industry, growth fund's been used really heavily. There's lots of growth fund sons out there. So I think when we look at what sets stock fund apart, he's got the really high cavities to the really high growth. He's definitely a curve bender type of bull. He's a good footed individual, but I think where he'll have the advantage over his sire and a lot of his brothers is in the marbling department. You can use this growth fund to actually improve marbling, and yet you get all them traits that growth fund is known for. He's a Cavanese bull, high growth, strong phenotype. He's a really sound individual, and he will give you some progression in the marbling department. Atlantis is a bull that we're really happy to have in our program, and that Montana Ranch has working with us on this bull across the globe. When you start talking about a bull that's steeped in pedigree, rainfall out of the great 1209 consensus daughter, he was bred to be a really high maternal type bull that's just real sound structured, big bodied, great females, great sons. And Atlantis really fits that bill. And I think he's a bull that, as we see, the next few years coming up, he's a bull that just gets more and more popular over time. He's a real back to basics type of bull. He's a kind of a bull that you can use him to keep your cow herds productive, beautiful udders. I think a bull that just really takes the traits of rainfall that's made rainfall really popular, and you're just adding in that great cow, that 1209 consensus daughter. And I think this is a bull that just use him for the real maternal pedigree that he's got, but he's a bull that's in the real shape. He's an easy doing type individual, high scrotal, and he's a real highly feed efficient type bull. When we look at him from a numerical standpoint and you look at his RFI and his DMI and his cow herd maintenance into dollar yen, I think we can really confidently say that he's a bull that's just efficient in all factors, whether it's from a feeding efficiency or a maternal cow herd efficiency. He's really checking those boxes. So I think as we've seen the Atlantis progeny all around the world, whether it's Canada and the US and across the globe, he's a bull that really just, he really stamps all his progeny with that really patented Atlantis type. Jesse James coming out of the shaft program, and I think, you know, we'd be really remiss if you know, he's for us, as he's that son of renovation, and the renovation bull has just done such great things for our program over the last number of years, and it's really culminated into the recent Shaft Angus Valley sale where renovation was the leadoff sire group, and Shafts followed up the renovations with Jesse James, and really that's really patent to what we're doing here. Renovation's been just such a great bull for our program from a daughter perspective. His sons have highlighted bull sales. They've been the high selling sires at Brooking for a number of years. Number of sons out in the industry, and his daughters are becoming absolutely worldwide. So for us, the next logical step, when we had the ability to work with the partners that had purchased Jesse James as one of the shaft high sellers, we for sure jumped on that. And I think when we looked at the cow families behind Jesse James, he was our logical next step in the whole renovation lineage. So he's a bull that we're really proud to be able to have in the lineup. And I think he is the next step for us on when we look at renovation. He likely adds maybe just a touch more cavities and lower birth than what a sire does. Excellent foot score when you look at this bull in person and on paper. High scrotal individual, and I think a bull that you could use him to maybe even give you just even a little bit more attractiveness in through that chest floor, a little more up-headed type individual even than a sire. But I think a bull that really carries on that renovation legacy for us. I believe down the road you'll see many sons that go out through the industry that will be Jesse James sired, and I think his daughters will leave a lasting legacy just as renovation has. Here's a bull bred out of the Peak Dot Ranch, the Trust Bull. He was the high seller a couple years back. They had a large group of Rough Rider sons, and when you follow the Peak Dot program, the Hoover No Doubt bull did such a great job for them, as well as many others through the industry in Canada and the US. You know, and he, for us, from our perspective, was just an absolute, when you talk phenotype to phenotype and easy doing, stout made type of cattle, he just does it generation after generation. That's the way the No Doubts were. That's the way the Rough Riders are. So I think he's a bull that really follows his pedigree to a T. It's really interesting. I was just touring out east up into northern Quebec, where a number of larger commercial outfits over there, they use Trust the first year that we had them available, and they've got some of the oldest progeny in a commercial setting that we've seen on him, and absolutely highlights in every herd that we went into. They were easy doing, good footed, just right kind of cattle, and they're moving them programs forward. So I think, you know, here's a bull that's had a lot of interest in the purebred, in the elite sector, but a bull that's done really good things as far as in the commercial sector as well. They're the right kind of Angus cattle that are working for us across the globe. Another graduate of the Pine View program that I had mentioned earlier, you know, we've gotten a number of sires out of that program. It's a program that's really worked well for us. And here was a bull that was a bit of an outcross pedigree, being a goalkeeper son, extremely good phenotype on Vesna. You know, he's a bull that's stout made. He's really sound individual. He's good footed, a deep body type of bull, good, well-shaped scrotal. And I think a bull that really can work in a lot of places. You know, he's a bull that'll move your data forward from a numerical standpoint, but he's a bull that'll cover all the basics and fundamentals. And when you look at his data across the board, You know, you can see he's a Cavanese bull, he's a growth bull, he's a high scrotal bull. You know, he does the foot data well and in person from an actual standpoint. He's a high milk bull. He's a bull that covers the marbling and ribeye base as well. So I think what I would call Vesna is just a real all around, check all the boxes, multi-trait sire, and I think that sums him up to a T. And if you're looking for a little bit of a fresher pedigree, you know, being a goalkeeper out of a mainstay, backed by a great cow family, I think this is a bull that really will see a lot of use over the next few years. I think just a really interesting individual that really covers a lot of bases. Getting into the growth sector here, this is a bull that we selected out of the Shaft Angus Valley last year. He's a sire that really set new growth barriers. I mean, he was the #1 weaning and #2 yearling weight bull that out of the whole Shaft Angus Valley sale last year. Offers a bit of a different pedigree across the globe through the top side with magnitude. And if we look at him, a big ribeye bull. He's a bull that like add a little bit extra frame. He's a bull that'll add you some length. He'll add you some scale. He'll just increase the frame just a touch. High cotton is a sexed option for ourselves. So he is available in both male and female, a real Cavanese individual. This is a bull that'll he's been used in a lot of heifer projects. He's a real safe Cavanese type of a bull. He, again, a bit of a different pedigree with summation out of a tour of duty. So the growth that he has when you go from a 1% Cavanese up to a 3% yearling weight, I think that's a bull that really fits these large scale projects very well. He's a surefire Cavan deal with a lot of growth, and the sexed option is a really an interesting tool that we can utilize throughout. I think a bull that from a phenotype standpoint really does a lot of interesting things in that he's real attractive made. He's a deep bodied, sound individual, and he's a bull that when you keep the females, foot shape and foot scores really tick those boxes as well. He, I think for a sexed option and in large scale heifer projects, I think he's a bull that's done a really good job for us and will continue to do so. Tenderloin is a Poss Maverick son, and of course Maverick was a really good bull for us over a number of years. Easy doing. He set some marbling heights for not just for the Semex program, but for the breed as a whole. Tenderloin was a bull that was selected with the Peak Dot Ranch again. He was a Maverick that just brought a little bit more growth to the table. He'll give you the high marbling that's become known for the whole Maverick line, but he's a bull that'll set you a little bit higher growth and get you to some growth barriers. The interesting thing with him is mature frame is moderate that you've come to know with Maverick, but you'll get just a touch more yearling frame and yearling growth out of Tenderloin than what you will generally through his lineage. The sons at Peak Dot we'll be seeing this spring, and I think we'll have a lot of appeal throughout the industry when you go through. He'll add you a little bit more scale and length of body than what the pedigree is really noted for. Brings us to Immensity, and this is to me, this is a really interesting, unique bull. You know, we spoke about the Maxima bull out of Shafts being a real growth bull and from a real cow family. He was a Mead magnitude son as well. So Immensity is our next magnitude son in the program. And I think the interesting thing about him, and we talk about data going to new heights and as an industry from a numerical standpoint, the beauty of this bull is numerically, and you can, when you do a sort of Cavanese birth weight to yearling weight, and we talk about curve benders, there's none better than Immensity. He is the only bull in the Angus database that'll go from a 21 CED minus 2.8 birth to a 168 yearling weight. He's the epitome of a curve bender. And the beautiful thing about him is he backs it up with his individual stats. From a 69-pound birth weight, he was the #1 performing and leadoff bull at the 60th anniversary of the Midland Bull Test, and he was the #1 efficiency bull and number 2 average daily gain bull. So, I mean, the interesting thing with him is from a genomic and an EPD standpoint, he's top of the charts, but he backed it up with his actual performance data, and especially in an unbiased test group. So I think Immensity, it'll be really interesting bull to follow down the road. He's a high scrotal bull. He's a bull that's high docility, a bull that really just checks all the boxes. And he's a bull that can move your program to absolutely new levels, no matter what the trait, whether it's cavities, birth weight, yearling weight, combining it all. He's a bull that just checks all the boxes. The Warhay program out of Montana, I think they've really bred a great one here. I think this bull is going to be a really, really interesting bull to follow over the next number of years. Upgrade is a bull that we acquired out of the Riverbend program, and he's a bull that's backed by an absolute no-miss donor cow. The Black Gold Rita 527 female. She was one of the past high sellers out of the Riverbend program, and become a great female in the Express program. Upgrade is he's setting new performance heights for us, and as more data is coming in, it's just strengthening the growth and performance that is in this bull. But yet he's doing it in a sensible above middle frame. I mean, there is a little bit more frame, a little bit more length in this bull, but he's a bull that doesn't get excessive in any of those traits when we look at his explosive weaning and yearling growth that the bull possesses. He's a sound made, good footed individual, and his first sons have really been well received through the bull sales. The Cudlow bull sale last fall was the first sons that we seen go through and very well received. And we'll see some sales coming up here in the Midwest and in the Dakotas where the first sons are going to be selling. But I think a bull that from a marbling perspective and a growth perspective, he really does the right things and in a great package backed by a really strong cow family. Getting into the Red Angus breed here, and a bull that we were extremely happy to acquire out of the famed 6 Mile program. From a numerical standpoint, he's just a check all the boxes Red Angus sire. From a cavities to a growth perspective, mossy oak, he really touches all them bases. But from a phenotype standpoint, just incredible soundness. He's deep bodied. He's got a lot of top and power and body to him. And the interesting thing with him is the sisters and brothers have been absolutely standout. So when we look at consistency of lineage and consistency of cow family, this year at the Denver National Western Stock Show down in the yards, the 6 Mile program had a number of full brothers to Mossy Oak on display. They were awarded the champion Red Angus pen. So again, hats off to 6 Mile. But I think, you know, the show accolades are great. But I mean, when you tour the 6 Mile ranch, it's a sensible cow operation, and Mossy Oak is just a great product of that program. And I think from a consistency standpoint, he's just absolutely incredible when we look at that, the brothers and the sisters, the cow family behind them, the other half siblings through John Wick. In one of the chat boxes we had, if he's a surefire heifer bull, early reports are he is, but with this being his first calf crop, of course, over the next 30 days, 40 days, we'll be able to answer that question with a lot of confidence. Early reports is it does appear that way. However, you know, we'll be a lot smarter here in another 4, 5, 6 weeks as we start to see a lot more progeny hitting the ground, just being that he is a first-year bull. So we appreciate the questions, and we'll definitely update as it goes along, but it really appears that he is checking all the boxes, and it's really interesting coming out of the 6 Mile program, just from a numerical standpoint, a cow family standpoint, and a phenotype standpoint. He's a Red Angus bull that I think is going to really lead our program over the next number of years. Outcome was a sire selected out of the Dalkey program out of Minnesota. He's really a neat pedigree for us, going back to the great final product bull on the black side of things and the Collier finished product, a powerful fusion daughter on the bottom side. And he's our are bet the ranch Cavanese type of bull. I mean, he's a top 2% Cavanese, top 2% low birth weight, does it with a big ribeye, bull that's got great heifer pregnancy, Cavanese maternal. But I think the interesting thing on him is with such high Cavanese he's just an incredibly great phenotype type of bull. He's a deep-bodied individual. He's sound-made, and he's a bull that'll do it on a real true mid-frame type of bull. So I think when we're looking from a Cavanese perspective in a real dark red fashion and not give up any phenotype, I think Outcome is a really logical choice in that type of scenario. Getting into the Simmental side of things, and it's really what a way to start was with Epic. He's the red Simmental bull that's led the breed in Canada and into the US the last number of years. Epic was the #1 registration sire in the CSA last year, and I mean it's for absolute backed up with his. When you look at him from a Cavanese perspective, into a growth perspective, into a high marbling perspective, there's none other that can come close to him in the red Simmental breed. He's just been an absolute stellar bull in our Simmental lineup for the last number of years. You know, they come easy. They got lots of grow to them. He'll add depth of body, all on a good foot. First daughters are calving. They're good uddered. He's a bull that's really just been checking all the boxes, and he's a hard one to find a follow-up to. I mean, we start looking at new Simmental sires and bulls to follow up Epic. And I mean, he's written a lot of chapters that it makes it really tough to find the follow-up bull that's just done it all for us through the program. True North was a black baldy, really high phenotype sire that we purchased with the Wheatland Cattle Company, real Cavanese sire. I mean, he's as new data is coming in, the Cavanese is absolutely legit on this bull, both in Canada and the US, but a bull that really takes phenotype to a new level. He's a bull that's just a striking appeal. You can use him in a lot of scenarios. In the show scenario, in the Simmental deal, he hits all the targets, but he's a bull from a bull sale perspective. The commercial guys are going to come in and like them sons. They're really stout topped, stout muscle, big bodied, real sound type individuals, and a bull that'll add that blaze to them. And I think a bull that has had a ton of appeal for us, and a bull that I think will continue to have that as well. And it's a real nicety when you can get that kind of Cavanese with that type of a phenotype individual. And we had spoke before, and trying to, the red Epic bull has really been tough to find a follow-up. And when we found Erickson Asset bull last spring out of the great Erickson program, he was a real interesting bull that we thought could potentially fill those footsteps. He's a bull from a numerical standpoint. He's great on the Cavanese and birth weight figures, all the way up to a high yearling weight, and he backs it up with his own individual data. He's a high ribeye bull. You really got to love the cow family on this bull. I mean, when we've actually got his grandmother pictured there, but he's a real phenotype type of individual out of a great cow family. And we really like to see that to back up that Cavanese perspective, the Coont Sheriff on the bottom side. Now, this will be the very first calf crop on Asset. So anytime that we're looking the more performance breeds, whether it's Simmental or Charolais, we're more, we'd rather recommend them as a lower birth Cavanese package on cows the first year or two. And then once they get sampled, then we can with confidence say whether they're actually heifer bulls or not. So I think this first year, utilize Asset as a strong potential Cavanese bull on your second calvers and above. And we'll see where that goes from there as far as being a heifer bull. We put Epic out the same way, and it turned out really well for us, that he turned into a real Simmental Cavanese individual. So I think it'll be really interesting to follow Asset over the next couple of years. From a phenotype standpoint, I mean, he's just impeccable. He's deep bodied, he's easy fleshing, a real sound made individual. He's good headed, and he's got the numerical and the pedigree to back him up. So I think a bull that really needs a lot of use over the next few years, and a bull that I think the sons will be in high demand in the commercial industry. And I think you can really build a female base off him when we look at that cow family that he's got behind him. Dimension is a bull he's a bull that's really gained steam as he's been in the program. He's seen moderate use the first year, and everywhere he got used, the bull really excelled. And so his use increased, and it's increased every year. He's an absolute massive individual and a real growth leader. From a performance standpoint, the Dimension bull really excels. He's a bull that's got a great foot underneath him. His sons have had great appeal throughout the industry. You know, the McIntoshes and Wheatland were some of the first sons sold, and to absolute rave reviews and lots of demand. And he's a bull he'll add you a big ribeye perspective from a carcass standpoint, lots of carcass weight, but a real growth powerhouse that'll put that baldy head on these black cattle, and just an absolute sound structured, big bodied, stout type of bull, and a little bit of a different twist to the pedigree in the bottom side. That cow, she had been working in the J6 program that Effling had actually got some embryos out of that actually produced Dimension. Real standout female, sound individual with a bit of a different pedigree twist through that bottom side. Gets us to a couple Sim Angus bulls for us, and it's really interesting on these Sim Angus bulls, both Growler and Great Western. They're both Cavanese individuals, and they give you lots of carcass merit, whether it's ribeye and marbling. They're bulls that they're really useful from a few standpoints. When we look at some commercial programs that want to utilize a bit of Simmental in the program, but yet, you know, for keeping the females kind of get that 1/4 to 3/8 Simmental in them, these half-blood to 5/8 Sim Angus are just great options in that type of a scenario. You get a little higher Cavanese through the Sim Angus, and they're really useful tools in some programs that also already have a little bit of Simmy in the commercial cow herd, and you want to keep that level and not have to go back and forth between purebreds and then throwing in some purebred Angus or purebred Simmental. You can utilize these Sim Angus bulls to lock in the percentages that you want through the cow herd. So I think some really useful individuals from a commercial perspective in some large scale AI, and both Great Western and Growler have been proven high fertility type bulls. They're mid-frame bulls. Great Western would be the more moderate frame of the two. The Growler would give you just a titch more frame than what Great Western will do. And from a feed efficiency perspective, it's the interesting thing about Great Western is the Visionary bull was a year ago, he was the #3 all-time gross safe feed efficiency sire over all breeds. So I think from a feed efficiency perspective, Cavanese perspective, I think a couple Sim Angus bulls that have a lot to offer. Getting into the Charolais division here, the Wheaton was one of our feature acquisitions last year out of the Great Sparrow program. A real Cavanese son of the LT Rushmore out of a great Skaggs daughter. Skaggs has done such a good job for the Sparrow program and all around the world. Here's just a real easy doing, big scrotaled, stout butted, real moderate middle frame type of individual, and a bull that's matured extremely well in stud. He's got a really good foot underneath him, and I think a bull that really deserves a heavy use for a heifer option in the Charolais breed, or honestly even on some cows that carry a little extra birth weight. If you want to keep the maternal and get some real strong Cavanese, a little more, add to some of them higher birth, bigger cows, I think Wheaton really fits a bill in a lot of scenarios, and an acquisition that we were really happy to be able to have. Badge is a sire that really was the buzz of the Charolais business a year ago, or sorry, 2 years ago when he sold at the LT sale. He was the high seller. The first son sold last year at LT. Of course, the Governor and Justified bulls that are pictured numerous high sellers throughout the industry, and a real phenotype type of bull. Next Gen Cattle Company had purchased badge from LT. They sold some high sellers out of their sale. The LT was populated by badge sons through the high selling list last year at the bull sale. A real phenotype type individual. He's really a lot of a similar body type pattern as what you'll find on the Wheaton sire that we just discussed, but a bull that really offers a lot of substance and muscle shape and just overall phenotype into the industry. Bull that's on the numbers here are his Canadian Charolais numbers. When we look at his American numbers, when we pull him up on the AICA where he'd be a little more progeny proven, his cavity is a little more breed average, but a higher growth sire. And we would expect the Canadian numbers in a year or two will likely follow that, follow the American numbers, where he'd be a little bit more of a growth sire and a moderate cavities type individual. Yellowstone, absolute stellar bull. He'll be first calves are on the ground right now. Of course, a son of the performance leader Tank, and out of an absolutely incredible donor female out of the North Grove program. Bull we were really happy to acquire a couple of years ago, and a bull that really touches all the boxes. Again, this is his Canadian Charolais data. He's an American bull. So when you look at his AIC data, it mirrors the Canadian data quite a bit, only sets even higher levels when we look at his weaning weight and yearling weight. And we would expect the Canadian numbers to start to follow the American numbers as his first calf crop gets weaned. Looks to be the Cabanese would be a moderate Cabanese bull. Probably not a bet the ranch heifer type bull, but very usable on heifers in certain scenarios. But again, a strong Cabanese bull, really high growth, high phenotype type individual, and great carcass merit. I think this is a bull that we'll see him being in the program a long time, and a bull that's just going to work at a lot of scenarios around the globe. Sound individual, true middle frame Charolais type bull, being around a 6.5. And I think a bull that can cover a lot of bases and tick a lot of boxes. Next bull is Level Up. He's our sexed option. He's a son of the great Merritt Roundup that was a real leading bull in our Charolais lineup for a number of years. Merritt, I believe, led the Charolais registrations a couple years in a row a few years back. So we wanted to find that Roundup son that would really check a lot of boxes for us. And Level Up as a growth bull. He's a higher marbling type bull. But I think the real unique thing is the sexed option on him. He was used a year ago. We used him in a few large commercial projects where they utilized the sexed male semen, and there was one of them actually not far from myself here, bred 250 cows to sexed male Charolais Level Up, and it was absolutely amazing. A set of black cows, and had an amazing conception rate on this. They were just approaching 60% on a one-time program on sexed male, and an amazing set of calves come out of that. And so I think it's really an interesting option to utilize that sexed in him in a commercial crossbreeding scenario, and proven high fertility on his sexed. And a high performance group of steer calves, lots of muscle shape and lots of growth. I think he allows you to have a lot of different options, whichever way you want to go from a commercial perspective, not just from pedigree and performance, but the sexed option as well. LT Rampart was another follow-up bull we acquired last year out of the LT program, looking for that ransom son that had just a little bit more phenotype to him as far as from a smoothness perspective, lots of length aside, a real sound individual, big scrotal, and I think he'll turn out for us to be a real bet the ranch Cavanese type of option. When we look at him from a pedigree perspective, and you put ransom over Tioga, you're just stacking the Cavanese. So I think he's a bull that's going to offer a lot of Cavanese from both a purebred heifer perspective as well as in a commercial perspective, and yet he's going to keep the growth when we start looking at breed average or better growth. on such a high cavities perspective. He really does a lot of things pretty interesting. And for a lot of marketplaces, especially in Canada, the Ransom on Tioga is definitely a fresh pedigree north of the border. When we look at our U.S. Counterparts down south, I think this is a bull that really offers a lot of cavities and ticks a lot of the boxes that are going to work in the American marketplace. Blueprint was a real feature out of the doll program. The Yellowstone bull, Tank Son had done a really good job for us. And then we had seen the carbon copies throughout the industry. And this was a bull that combined those two pedigrees. He offers a little more stoutness and muscle shape than what maybe the Tank pedigree provides. And the Tank provides a little more performance and stretch and growth than what the carbon copy provide. And it really blended the pedigree into an individual that really took the best of both pedigrees and took it to a new level. He's an absolutely great phenotype type of individual. And from a numerical standpoint, he really does a lot of pretty interesting things. When we look at a top of the breed cavities up to a 3% yearling weight, he's a high milk individual. I think he really can be used in a lot of scenarios. And I think when you look at him from strength of pedigree, and we see what carbon copy has done through the industry, great udders on the females, lots of muscle shape, and we see what Tank is setting some new levels. I think we have a lot of expectations on Blueprint, and he's a bull that really meets him when you see him visually in person. On the Hereford side of things, Boulder is a bull that's really just been doing a lot for us lately. He's into his second calf crop, and his first calf crop really set, no matter where this bull was used, they excelled and they came to the top. A real thick-butted, deep body type individual. He'll add a little bit more base width for a Hereford sire, lots of top. And the most beautiful thing of him is that cow family coming through the Cody and Shauna Chabot cow herd, an absolute no-nonsense ranch raised environment where they really put a lot of attention on feet and udders. This bull's maternal lineage through his dam, grand dam, and great grand dam is absolutely second to none. So I think a bull that's done some really great things through his first calf crops from a phenotype perspective, just the substance, the easy doing, the type that he's providing. But I think the long term is the greatest potential because of the cow herd and cow family behind Boulder. We really expect some great things once his daughters get into production. But it's sure pretty neat to see these progeny coming out of the gate. And I think he's going to be an absolutely long-term sire for us. Big Country is an absolute incredible spread sire. These calves, I mean, they are born little, get up and go, lots of vigor, and then they absolutely take off. He's a true spread Hereford sire. So I think from that kind of a perspective, he's just absolutely in a league of his own from low birth to high growth. I think a sire that really does that a lot. And a real milk adding bull. When you look at that 45 milk EPD, top 1%, I think he's a bull that can really fit in a lot of places and really move your data, but also move your actual performance stats in a real positive direction. He's a bull that'll bring some birth weights down for you, but you are not going to sacrifice growth. And then you can add some milk as you're going along. Phantom was a bull, and we talked about following up sires in the Red Simmental when we were trying to follow up Epic and came across the Erickson Asset bull. This is where Phantom, the Sass Valley Yesterday bull, did such a great job for our program. And it was that Canadian pedigreed shorthorn, straight Canadian, that moderate frame, that deep body, that easy doingness. And we were trying to find a sire to follow up yesterday. And then we came across Phantom, and he absolutely checked those boxes. You're talking a moderate frame individual, extreme body mass and volume, easy fleshing. And I think a bull that really can do some interesting things from a shorthorn perspective, as bringing that cow herd sensibility, moderate frame score, and just easy fleshing type females to the equation. And I think Phantom definitely ticks those boxes, just as Sask Valley yesterday did for us. You look at his dam there, she's just like him. Deep bodied, easy fleshing, high milk type of individual. So I think a bull that really puts the easy doingness and maternal efficiency back into a shorthorn pedigree. Flash is a bull that was brought into the program here. You know, he does some neat things from a performance perspective. You know, he'll be top of the breed on performance. He'll add a lot of milk. He'll add a lot of phenotype. A real popular bull across the globe. We've seen the first progeny in the U.S. started to set some new standards and had a lot of market appeal. So we brought that bull north of the border into Canada. We're also available in the U.S. through ourselves. So I think a bull that really does a phenotype perspective extremely well in the shorthorn breed, and from a numerical perspective as well. You still get above breed average cavities, add a lot of growth, add some milk, and a really, really solid pedigree and exceptional phenotype individual. Grassroots is our Limousin sexed option, an extremely good phenotype individual. Brings a lot of cavities to him. He's a high on early gestation type sire, high on cavities, great birth weight type individual. And then you get into some breed average growth. He is available in both sexed male and female, but a bull that can be utilized in a lot of commercial programs with some sexed male semen. An extremely good phenotype sire out of a rock solid dam and grand dam, but a bull that sexed option gives you a lot of mating flexibility in a commercial program. We've had a lot of interest in the Speckle Park breed over a lot of years, and had a lot of really commercially focused type Speckle Park sires. But with all that interest, we really wanted to bring an elite Speckle Park sire to the program. And last spring, with the judgment call, he was one of the highest selling Speckle Park bulls in the spring of 2022 out of the KFC farm sale. Great pedigree with the Riverhill Excalibur on the top side and his great dam on the bottom side. He's just a very good phenotype Speckle Park sire, a lot of muscle, a lot of body, and a bull that's had extreme worldwide appeal. He was a bull that to acquire him on the bull sale, there were a lot of groups across the globe that were after this bull to acquire him for their programs, and we were really happy to be successful and have judgment call into the program, and a truly elite Speckle Park sire that we can offer across the globe. So I think with that, Brad, we ran through some of the sires, and I guess some of the things I'd say is you know, we've picked out a few bulls that were maybe some older bulls that have been in the program, that are progeny proven and daughter program, that we wanted to talk about a little bit from some of those perspectives, and then also have a mix of some of the young sires. But you know, we're always available, either myself or Brad. You know, we have a lot of bulls and a very diverse lineup, and you know, there's only so much time to do this. There's a lot of sires in their own right that, you know, feel free to reach out on any questions on any of the sires we have, even if they were discussed tonight, or other sires that pique your interest through the website or the catalog. I think we're always here to answer any questions. You know, the more information that we can put out there for you as a producer, you know, that only helps you and it helps us.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks, Dennis, once again for going through that. And if there is any questions, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, I think we will let everybody get back to their schedules, and look forward to chatting and meeting anybody along the road here over the course of the next year. Frame score on high cotton, Dennis. What's your thoughts on high cotton from a stature standpoint?
Yeah, he'd be a lower middle frame bull. You know, you'd put him about a 5 to 5.5 type individual. it's interesting question because he actually appears a little framier, you know, in the picture, but he's more of a 5 to a 5.5 type bull, and an absolute true Cavanese bull that does give you, you know, set you strong growth as well.
Very good. Okay, I think with that, then we will let everybody go. And thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time, and looking forward to catching up later. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.